Hello everyone, a very good evening to all of you. Today we are back with the daily quiz where we have 5 important questions for you from the world of UPSC examination and everything that you need to prepare for Prelims 2024. And before we begin, a reminder for all of you, if you are somebody who are looking to prepare, who are starting your preparation for your examination, there is a form, there is a link to the form in the description below and also in the pinned comment. You can fill that form and experts from our end can get in touch with you. So let's begin with our session and look at the questions that we have in store for you in today's session. The first question is, consider the following statements about the India International Science Festival. Now, when it comes to India International Science Festival, you might know that this is something that was conducted last week by the Government of India, and this is where a good participation was seen all across, whether from a lot of firms related to science, whether a lot of organizations related to science, and also participation from all across, people in general, and also a lot of students. So let's look at the statements. First statement is, IISF is an initiative jointly organized by the Ministry of Science and Technology, Ministry of Earth Sciences, Department of Space, and Department of Atomic Energy in association with Vigyan Bharati. Now this is perfectly correct. These are all the organizations and ministries who have been in the organization of this festival. So this is a correct statement. Second statement, the primary objective of IISF is to provide a platform for international scientific collaboration and it is not open to the general public. Now, in this statement, the first part of the statement is correct, that this is where we have a platform for international collaborations, but the second part is not correct, that it is not open for general public is wrong, because this is where we are looking at, and if you look into the objective, this is where they are looking for science participation from all across, from people in general, from public in general, to the students, whether at school level or at college level, and to the organizations in the scientific world, and also the ministries participating at the same time, discussing science of the present and the future. So that's why the fact that what's written here, whether the fact that it is not open to general public is wrong. So that's why this will not be a correct statement. The third one is, the primary aim of IISF is to celebrate science, make it accessible to all, and foster collaboration for scientific advancement within India and internationally. Now this is correct, and this is something that has been listed out as an objective when it comes to India International Science Festival. So statement number 1 and statement number 3, these are correct. So correct answer here will be C. And this is something that we have taken from the PIB, because we just concluded the festival last, couple of days back, and this is where we saw this PIB article in yesterday's publishing. So this is the first question. And remember, these kind of, you might have seen in the past that these kind of events many a times, they do come in your prelims paper, and this time this festival has been celebrated at a very grand scale, so that is something that makes it more important for your examination. Let's move on. The second question. Consider the following statements. First, neutron stars are formed by gravitational collapse of massive stars after a supernova. Second, supermassive black holes found at the center of galaxies are believed to formed by the accumulation of gas and dust over billions of years. The third statement, density of a neutron star is comparable to that of a supermassive black hole. Now, what is the context to this question? This is a small article that was published in today's Hindu newspaper. Now, just remember one thing. If you look at some of the past papers of the last 5-6 years, you'll find that they have been asking certain questions based on some celestial bodies, and these are celestial bodies which are not just the common celestial bodies that you know of, like planets or the stars, etc., but some others are being asked. If you look at the 2023 question paper also, you'll find it. In 2021 paper also you'll find it. So that's why you'll see that this is something which is a repeated trend nowadays in your paper. So that is why we believe that this could be something that you should be aware of. Now, the first statement is talking about neutron stars. whether the neutron stars are formed by gravitational collapse of massive stars after a supernova, this is correct. Now, what happens is that when you have a massive star meaning that when you have a huge ball of mass where we look at the mass of the star to be at least more than 1.44 times greater than the mass of our sun. So whenever you have any star which has a mass greater than that, it is called as a massive star. And when it is about to die, this is where an explosion happens at the center of the star, and this explosion is called as supernova. This explosion is called as supernova, and when supernova happens, this is where there are chances that either a neutron star can be formed or a black hole can be formed. So that's when neutron stars are formed after the gravitational collapse of a massive star, which is correct. So statement number 1 is correct. Second statement is supermassive black holes found at the center of galaxies are believed to be formed by the accumulation of gas and dust over billions of years. Now, this is again, when it comes to this is also a correct statement, because when we are looking at supermassive black holes, we do see that there they have very strong gravitational field, and they would be formed after the death of a massive star and accumulation of dust and gases because of the gravitational effect of that particular space will happen. So there will be a small space which is the black hole, and all the dust and gases will keep on getting attracted towards it, and then over billions of years we see that these supermassive black holes are formed. So statement number 2 is correct. Third is the density of a neutron star is comparable to that of a supermassive black hole. This is wrong. Now just remember, if you remember, density, the basic formula for density is what? Mass by volume. That mass per unit volume is called as density. Now in case of supermassive black holes, the mass per unit volume is very, very high. So that's why, because it's a very small space and a huge mass. So that's why in this particular scenario, the density is extremely high, all right? And in case of neutron stars, although the density is higher than usual, higher than a normal star, but it is never comparable to any black hole, let alone supermassive black holes. So that's why this is a wrong statement, and correct answer that's why will be 1 and 2 only. Moving on, question number 3. Consider the following statements. Adequate forex reserves are crucial for a country to meet its international financial obligations and influence the exchange rate of its currency. Second statement, high levels of forex reserves leads to inflationary pressures within the country. Now, why this question? Because this was in the news yesterday, and that's why it is there in the Indian Express in today's publication. So the news says forex reserves jumps $1.63 billion to $618.9 billion. This is the data that was released, and this was the data for the last week, that is 12th of January, the week that ended on 12th of January. This is the data that was published. Now, we are talking about forex reserves, and forex reserves for a country's economy is always seen as a very important indicator, especially when it comes to international trade. So when you look at the first statement, adequate forex reserves are crucial for a country to meet its international financial obligations and influence the exchange rate of its country. This is perfectly fine. This is perfectly correct. And that's why we see that internationally, when we look at the economic health of a country, this is something that becomes very, very crucial. So that's why from that perspective, when we are looking at forex reserves, we understand that rising forex reserves is always good for a country's economy, and especially it is something that you can say in a manner also helps us in terms of balance of payment, in maintaining balance of payment, and at least act as, you can say, a cushion in ensuring balance of payment. So that's why it becomes very, very crucial indicator for a country's economy, and especially at the time of a crisis, international crisis, etc., it can be a very, very important tool for any country. Second statement is high levels of forex reserves leads to inflationary pressures within the country. Now, when we talk about a direct relation between inflation within the country and forex reserves, which is looking towards the international trade and balance of payment, then sometimes it could be connected, sometimes it may not be connected. So that's why saying that it always leads or it does lead to inflationary pressure would not be perfectly correct. All right, we cannot say that it always happens. So that's why, let's say if the statement was that it may lead to, all right, if the statement was that it may lead to, then in that case you probably can mark this as a correct statement, because there are a lot of papers also that have been published where they have tried to identify how exactly inflation within the country can be related to forex reserves. But overall, when we look at any basic scenario, largely they could be sometimes connected, but largely they are not connected. So that's why if it was may lead, I could have still marked it as a correct answer, but because it says leads to, then in that case we would take it as an extreme statement and mark it as wrong. So correct answer, that's why, will be A, that is 1 only. Moving on, the next question. Consider the following statements regarding antibiotic resistance. First statement, antibiotic resistance occurs when bacteria mutate in response to the use of antibiotics, making the standard treatment ineffective. Now, when it comes to antibiotic resistance, what we mean by antibiotic resistance is that this is where the pathogens now have some kind of resistance, they have developed some kind of resistance against the medicines or the drugs that you are using on them. So then what happens is that even if you are taking these medicines, the medicines have no effect. All right, the medicines have no effect, and hence we see that this is where uh, uh, even if you take medicines, you will not be cured of that disease, because the bacteria or any pathogen for that matter now has become resistant. So antibiotic resistance occurs when bacteria mutate in response to the use of antibiotics, making the standard treatment ineffective, is correct. And this is one of the major problems that we see here. Second statement is the overuse of antibiotics in livestock and agriculture is a contributor to rise in antibiotic resistant bacteria. This is also correct. One of the most important things that we have seen is that, especially when it comes to livestock and poultry, etc., you might see that there is a trend of overuse of antibiotics. The antibiotics, let's say if there was one tablet to be given, 2 or 3 tablets will be given to the livestock, just because we think that, okay, fine, if you give extra, maybe you are killing extra bacteria, but that's not the case, because what happens then is that the bacteria or the pathogen inside the gut of these animals will start to resist this. They will start to evolve, and they'll start to evolve and start developing a resistance against these antibiotics. So ultimately what happens is that they become antibiotic resistant, and then after that they may contribute to a cycle in which these bacteria then come and also mix with the soil and the water nearby, maybe because of the feces, etc., and then after that they become a part of the entire food chain, and then they probably also enter the human body later on. So that's where this is something that happens, and it has been seen as one of the major contributors here. Third statement is the indiscriminate use of last mile antibiotics accelerates the development of antibiotic resistance. Now, this statement I have given, this could be a difficult statement for you to understand, but I've given this because there have been cases which have been in the news about last mile antibiotics. Now, last mile antibiotics basically are antibiotics which are only supposed to be given when no other medication works. It will not be the first medication that you go to, but this will be the last thing that you do if nothing else works. Now, what we have seen is that there have been cases of antibiotic resistance even against last mile drugs. Now, just understand that if last mile drugs do not work, nothing else will work, because you are only taking it when nothing else is already working. So that's why it becomes a very dangerous thing. And in the past few years, we have seen that there have been cases of antibiotic resistance developing against last mile drugs, and this is one of the reasons why this has been happening is that we have been using these last mile drugs without having a valid prescription, without even needing them, and all these kind of issues have happened. So that's why all these 3 statements that have been given here, they are correct. Now, why are we discussing this question? Because this was an article that was there in the print, and this is about what the government has now mandated, that antibiotic prescriptions should also mention a reason, and this is something that the government have told to the over the counter selling of antibiotics and all the prescribers and everyone, so that they also have to understand the severity of the situation, because we see that there is a drastic rise in the number of cases of antibiotic resistance in the past 1 decade, I would say. So that's why this is something that was notified. Now, coming to a previous year question, as we always do. Now, this is a question that I have picked mainly because there is one controversy that was there in the news last week, and this is about neem-coated urea. Now, neem-coated urea, this question had come in your 2016 paper. Why does the government of India promote the use of neem-coated urea in agriculture? First is release of neem oil in the soil increases nitrogen fixation by soil microorganisms. Neem coating slows down the rate of dissolution of urea in the soil. Nitrous oxide, which is greenhouse gas, is not at all released into the atmosphere by crop fields, and it is a combination of weedicide and the fertilizer for particular crops. Now, the correct answer here is B. That what it does is that the coating will slow down the rate of dissolution. So then in that case what happens is that nitrogen that is required as food for the crops, you can say, or the nutrition for the crops, nitrogen will be available for a longer time. All right, nitrogen absorption rate will be decreased, and that's why nitrogen will be available as a nutrition for a longer duration of time for these crops. So that's the most important reason why neem coating is being done. Now, there was a controversy because there was a statement by Akhilesh Yadav, and in this particular scenario what he had said is that the government has increased the rate of neem coated urea, that he said that whatever prices you are paying, the prices, instead of paying that price for a 45 kg bag, now you are paying those prices to for a 40 kg bag. And this is a statement that he had given in in one of the speeches of his, and this is something where we see that the ministry has said that this statement is wrong and it is misleading, and that's why it was in controversy last year, that there is no increase in price, there is no change in the composition, and the bags are still a 45 kg bag and the price remains the same. So that's why he said that you should not be misleading people about all these things, and that's why it was in the controversy. So hence I thought that let's move back and see one question that has come on this neem coated urea earlier. Lastly, coming to the fact of the day, something that will remain a developing story for the next few months, and this is about autonomous driving, and we are talking about the ADAS, that is Advanced Driver Assistance System. And India traditionally is not seen as a market for ADAS systems because the traffic is very different here, a very difficult scenario for a lot of companies to even think of making an ADAS gear for India. But now what we see is that there is a market that is developing in India for these ADAS systems as well, where a lot of companies, they have started showing interest, and many of the companies internationally have started working for these companies. For example, this is about a latest order from Mahindra and Mahindra Group about advanced driver assistance technology, where they are looking towards a fully autonomous driving system for India, which is seen to be a very difficult task as of today. But now we see that the companies have started showing interest and they have started asking for it. So maybe this is something that will also develop in the coming months. So you have to keep an eye on it, that we are talking about something where we are able to design and improve the safety parameters of the driving system. So it's not only about a driverless car or an automatic driving, etc., but also a lot of changes that we can make in the driving systems in India, which can at least reduce the number of accidents. For example, when you look at the World Bank report, it says that annually there are 8 lakh accidental deaths in India, which is among the highest in the world. So that's why probably these kind of scenarios, these kind of technologies coming into the picture might also help the cause here and decrease some of these numbers as well. So it's not only about an automatic car or something, but also a driver assistance which will help in reducing these kind of accidents. So that's why just keep an eye on it. From economy perspective, it might remain important because we are looking at a new market being created out of these systems. All right. So These were the questions for today's session. And this was the fact. Please go through it and also understand the importance of all these topics. And as I mentioned earlier, if you are somebody who is looking for preparation, you can fill the form given below and get in touch with our experts. With that, let me end the session for today. Thank you very much for joining.